Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the Corn Productions Deep Dive TV podcast with my co-host Stacie here to talk about Frequency, the 2000 flick starring Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel. We're doing this movie for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Dave.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
I forgot that I'm also getting shouted out this week because I'm also a father, as it turns out. We thought this movie would be the perfect movie to do for Father's Day because it fit right into our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's both time travel-y and, about a father and son relationship. The movie's description reads as follows. An accidental cross-time radio link connects father and son across 30 years. The son tries to save his father's life, but then must fix the consequences. The movie was written by Toby Emmerich, only 3 writing credits, including a series based on the movie. But he has 107 producing credits, which reads like every 2000s movie that ever was made, including The Butterfly Effect, which I would love to cover, and I think we should, because there's some similarities here, and History of Violence and Final Destination 3. The movie was directed by Gregory Hoblit, 22 credits for him, including Fallen, which you're pretty familiar with that movie, right? Fallen?
I don't think so.
It's the Denzel Washington movie where basically this body-hopping creature keeps jumping around bodies and such.
No, that doesn't sound familiar to me.
It's also another movie I'd like to cover. Primal Fear and Fracture. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a Perfect podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go check it out. And then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms that this podcast is available on, please follow and feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered.
All right.
If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right, Stacie, your thoughts on this week's movie?
This is a pretty good movie. When you suggested we cover it, I was like, yeah, that fits perfect. But it was kind of exciting because I saw this movie so long ago that it almost felt like I was getting to watch something new. Mm-hmm. Like, I remembered the main, idea, but all the beats were completely lost to me. So I had fun watching it. I had fun working on it. It's been a while since we've covered a movie.
Yes, the last time we covered a movie was Valentine's Day.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. I forgot how much more work a movie is than an episode of television. And it's not even just 2 episodes of television.
Right.
Time-wise, like length of the thing. It's so much more than that.
Right, yes.
Because every single character, we have to figure out who they are and talk about the actors. And it's a lot. The way we do our notes, it's a lot.
Yeah.
This took me 3 days, going back and forth working on this.
Right. This is a very good film. It definitely has its problems, as every time travel property in the history of mankind has ever had.
For me, it really didn't start falling apart till we got closer to the end.
Yes, that's
and then
when
it's
the cracks start showing.
wait a minute.
Right, yeah.
So we'll talk about all that, of course.
Right. So there's 3 movies that this one kind of, one, it kind of reminded me of Quantum Leap a little bit.
Absolutely, there were Quantum Leap beats to this.
There was also, it kind of reminded me of the movie The Butterfly Effect, which is listed on one of these person's credits. And yeah, the whole remembering the old lifetime as well as the new. Mm-hmm. And then it also kind of reminded me of the movie Looper a little bit at times. Did you see that movie?
I saw that, but I don't remember anything about that.
So yeah, the rules are kind of more like Quantum Leap, where you can make changes. Mm-hmm. Where it's not following the predestination paradox kind of idea, time travel, where you cannot change events. Yeah, there's definitely some issues with logistics throughout this movie, but I mean, that's true of any time travel movie. Like you said, it gets really, really rough towards the end of this
yeah, by the time we get to the climax, it's like, wow, that was cool, but it makes 0 sense because what about this? And what about that? And I want to know this.
Right.
Because we're looking at it too hard.
Right, yeah.
Because that's what we signed up to do.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, most average viewers aren't looking at it the way we're looking at it.
They're watching the movie.
Both between our podcast lens and our time travel lover lens.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I remember most of the beats between, the father and son stuff in this movie. I didn't really remember the action-y stuff in this movie. The beginning of this film is, well overblown for the type of story that it actually is.
Yeah,
we have this huge...
there's a lot of action,
Yeah. I was actually pretty surprised. I didn't actually remember most of that. when I sat down to actually
This
do
was
this rewatch.
a big movie.
Yeah, yeah.
This is no made-for-TV business.
Right,
This
yeah.
is
Yeah.
this is a higher quality than we usually cover.
Right, yes. All right, so anything else to say before diving in?
We might as well just get to it. And if this happens to be your first time with us, if you've stumbled upon this because you love this movie, tell you a little bit about how we do this. We're going to go scene by scene, talk about everything that happens in the movie, and as we meet new characters, we're going to talk about their actors and some of their credits that stood out to us, and talk about everything happening.
All right, so the film begins with the sun in space. We hear the radio talking about the 1969 Mets, which, by the way, that's another thing that really tickled me about this movie, and I forgot, is the fact that so much of this plot hinges on the New York Mets, which is my baseball team.
Right, the 1969 World Series is our kind of backdrop for the timeline here. Mm-hmm. That's what's grounding us in real history. And
we hear in this radio announcement about the Nightingale murders, which of course is going to be important to the plot.
Yep, a third nurse was killed, the radio tells us. And of course, we're also getting 1960s music. Love the soundtrack for this.
Yep.
Including Susie Q, that's my song.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. And then we see a truck driver getting into a car accident. Basically, it knocks over something, and it's basically causing a big, massive problem.
Yeah, so it's an oil truck. He's the one who was listening to the radio. Mm-hmm. And he gets in an accident with a construction site at the base of the George Washington Bridge.
Gotcha.
And in the midst of this, 2 Con Ed workers got trapped underground. And the gas from the tanker has flooded underground, is what's happening.
Gotcha. I had the Con Ed workers somewhere, but I don't quite know where they are in my notes. But I'm sure they'll pop up eventually.
So this is like basically our cold open introduction to the fire department and to one of our main characters, Frank Sullivan.
Right. We then cut to see the fire truck going into action, where we see Dennis Quaid's character, Frank Sullivan, as you just said, for the first time. 117 credits for him, including The Rookie, which is a movie I love, Traffic, and another movie that I really love, In Good Company.
He played Jerry Lee Lewis in Great Balls of Fire. More recently, he was in Lawmen Bass Reeves, and a new show called Happy Face, which is also about
the Happy
a
Face
serial
Burgers.
killer.
Yeah. Oh, is that something you'd be interested in checking out?
I haven't watched it. I've just seen ads for it.
Okay. So Frank goes into action to save some people down in the tunnel when he's being advised to get that guy there because one spark is going to set the entire place ablaze.
Right. So they have, there's wires that are loose underneath because they're doing electric stuff. They're the Con Ed workers. And again, it's filling up with gas. So it's a very combustible situation.
I'm actually kind of confused a little bit here. I think the person speaking is Butch Foster.
Yes, this is his boss, Lieutenant Butch Foster.
Played by, I didn't even put his name down.
This is Peter MacNeil.
Right, Peter MacNeil. 2 episodes of Sullivan's Crossing.
Mm-hmm. He played Duncan in Sullivan's Crossing. Yep. That was Sully's roommate at the hospital in season 2.
He's been in 2 movies since his Sullivan's Crossing appearances, A 90s Christmas and The Kilgreen. I believe that Commander O'Connell is also in the scene. Am I right?
Hang on, I'm still talking about Peter MacNeil.
Okay, sorry.
He also was in 24 episodes of Moonshine, which is one of our Nova Scotia shows. He was in 47 episodes of The Good Witch, and he was in Storm of the Century.
Yes, which is another thing that I really want to check out. I've already seen it. I want to cover it.
That needs to go on our Stephen King list, which we're going to get to eventually.
Right, yes.
So Commander O'Neill, I didn't figure out exactly who he is, but it makes sense he might have been in this scene.
Yeah, he's played by Jack McCormick. 6 credits for him, including 2 Law & Order series and Rescue Me.
Okay.
And also in the scene is, I think, Frank Sullivan's partner. I guess he's a rookie.
Yeah, this is Gib. Graham Gibson is the character.
Okay. Played by Jordan Bridges. 56 credits for him, 7 episodes of Dawson's Creek, an episode of The Blacklist, and an episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit.
He also was a regular in all 105 episodes of Rizzoli and Isles.
Okay.
Frank and Gib, who went down in the tunnels. And they're trying to rescue the 2 Con Ed workers. I have them, too. It sounds like you missed them.
I have them somewhere. I know one of them...
They don't come back back after this scene.
I know one of them is Terry Serpico.
Oh, yes. Con Ed worker number 1 is Terry Serpico. 20 episodes of Law & Order SVU, 3 episodes of Cobra Kai, which is where I'm sure you're going.
Of course. Yeah, I actually recognized the name as soon as I saw it. I'm like, I know this guy. And I looked into it. Okay. So I've actually talked about him before because I covered that season of Cobra Kai. And he was basically Kreese's commanding officer in that series, if you're familiar. He was in the past scenes of Kreese's military career. And that's how I remember him. And I'm sure he had some other credits as well, but I don't know where they are exactly. Somewhere in here. Maybe they got deleted. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter.
You already were moving on from the scene, so I'm not sure.
Right.
Con Ed worker number 2 is played by Brian Smidge, Smyj.
Yep.
He's a stunt performer. He has 200 stunt credits, including shows like Royal Pains and the series of Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Oh, okay. And basically, the spark sets because the wire comes out and it hits the water, and then
The gas.
Yeah. And then everything goes kablooey. Frank Sullivan's barely manages to get out.
Yeah, the other 3 get out. So they have the 2 Con Ed workers go up first, then Gib goes. Frank's in the rear. He almost doesn't make it.
Right.
We're watching the backdraft come towards him, and he's just staring at it.
Right.
And then, of course, he gets out to the last second. That would have been a very short movie if we killed him right here.
Right.
Unless this was a flash forward to how he does die. I mean, they could have done that.
They could have
just started in the scene where he's supposed to die, and then we go backwards. But they didn't do that. They gave us this whole separate emergency situation to be like, hey, fireman, it's a dangerous job. That's the whole point of this. Also, somewhere in here, I'm going to assume was the Con Ed supervisor. I didn't catch where he spoke, but I don't know where else he would have been.
Must have gotten deleted.
Con Ed supervisor was played by John DeBenito. He was in 6 episodes of Law and Order and the movie Goodfellas.
All right. And I think that was what I had for one of his credits as well. I mean, it's one of the things that would have stood out to me as Goodfellas. So we cut to Frank Sullivan riding a motorcycle. He rides to his house with his kids, playing catch in the yard. Well, one of them is his son. Johnny Sullivan, played by Daniel Henson. He had 5 credits, including an appearance on Star Trek Enterprise. The other kid is Gordy, the younger version, played by Stephen Joppy. 36 credits for him, including Storm of the Century, an episode of Transplant, and 4 episodes of Fargo.
Stephen was also in 2 episodes of Slasher. So yeah, the characters we're meeting here is Johnny Sullivan at age 6 and Gordo Hirsch at age 8. He's the next door neighbor and best friend of Johnny.
So he goes to see his wife, Julie, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, which I'm pretty sure you should be familiar with.
Yeah, and you know what? It was very strange seeing Elizabeth Mitchell with dark hair.
50 credits were including Lost, a pretty sizable role on that.
57 episodes of Lost. She was Juliet.
An episode of House, and a regular on the reboot of V.
Yes, 22 episodes of V. She was in 42 episodes of Revolution and 10 episodes of Once Upon a Time. She played the Ice Queen.
Gotcha.
In that series. Of course, Lost and Once Upon a Time had lots of overlap with their actors. And just before we meet her, we do get an overlay on the screen telling us the date. It's October 10th, 1969.
Yes.
Which means that the accident the night before, assuming it was before midnight, was my birthday.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So he ends up singing to his wife and dancing with her. His son watches from the window and brings over Gordy, who laughs as they watch. And we see lights in the sky. This is the Aurora Borealis. You know, it's funny because when I originally described this movie to Adam, I said, oh yeah, Aurora Borealis causes time travel. I thought I was making that up. But that's the actual explanation we get for this movie. Yeah. And we don't really get it.
They don't really lean into that much.
Right.
Like there's some like talk, you know, there's scientists talking on TV and all this. But they never quite figure it out. They both stare at the sky a lot, but they never say to each other, oh, it's got to be the Aurora Borealis that's letting us talk to each other. Oh, it's ending tonight. This must be our last time we have contact. They don't do that.
No.
They're kind of oblivious. They're like, I wonder how this is happening.
Right.
I wonder when it's going to end.
I mean, it's kind of silly, and it's a pretty flimsy explanation for how this could happen, but whatever. The rest of the movie is fun, so it kind of makes up for it.
Yeah. So we learned during this scene they're fans of Elvis. They put on one of his records, which makes sense because that's the name of their dog.
Right.
They have a Dalmatian because he's a firefighter.
Right, of course.
Named Elvis,
Naturally.
which is super cute.
Yep.
She's not so good at cooking. She's upset because she burned her sauce. And she's like, hey, you didn't marry Donna Reed. But he says he'd take her and Chinese takeout over Donna Reed any day.
Aww. Okay, so Frankie at night is trying to teach his son how to ride a bike, but it doesn't end up going well. He ends up falling. He gets upset and runs into the house. His wife yells at him. And then Johnny waves from his bedroom window at him. So apparently he wasn't that mad at his dad. As Frank looks, we see an impressive light display. And then once again, we are in space listening to the radio. Then we cut to October 10th, 1999. This would be 30 years in the future. With Johnny all grown up, played by Jim Cazibio, 45 credits for him, including High Crimes and Deja Vu, which is another time travel-y kind of movie. And he was also literally Jesus in The Passion of the Christ,
Yes.
which I hear is actually getting a sequel, The Resurrection of Christ.
Really? Is he
Yes.
playing him?
Yes, I think that, and
Huh.
it's kind of funny because, this is, that was like about the same time frame as this movie.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was like 25 years ago. So it's kind of crazy. But I'm actually familiar with all these movies. I didn't actually see The Passion of the Christ. It's not my thing. But I am a big fan of High Crimes and Deja Vu. I can't imagine covering Deja Vu because it is very actiony, and I know that's not really a thing.
Yeah, I have a hard time with action scenes. Even
Right.
in this movie, when there's too much action, I'm like, keep your eyes open. Pay attention. I have such a hard time when there's no dialogue. He also was in the Outlander movie.
Yes.
And all 103 episodes of Person of Interest.
Okay, so he's not having a good day. His wife, Samantha.
This is his fiance,
Fiance,
actually.
okay.
We learn later they're not actually married. This is Samantha. And I say fiance because she is wearing a ring.
Okay.
So I assume that's where they're at.
She's played by Melissa Rico, 27 credits for her, including 2 episodes of Billions, an episode of Blue Bloods, and Loverboy, which is a Kevin Bacon directed film starring his wife, Kyra Cedric. And so that's our Kevin Bacon connection.
All right.
And yeah, so she's sobbing. She's saying, you can't change.
She's packing her bags.
Right.
She's on her way out
Right.
the door, and
Well,
they're saying goodbye to each other.
She's basically like, change. You just don't want to. And he basically is just like, bye. He's not. He's
not handling it very well.
You see him put down his badge. We learn that he's a cop.
And we look at a picture of him, Samantha, and his mother. So this is in case you didn't catch on yet that this is little Johnny.
Right.
Here he is with Elizabeth Mitchell.
Right. And he ends up starting drinking. We see him sitting on the bleachers of a baseball field, remembering things and drinking with the lights, the aurora borealis going on in the background.
Yeah, and we're hearing an audible memory of a little league game that he played, in which they were paying tribute to Johnny's father who had died.
Right. He goes to Gordy's house. We see an adult.
Well, no, this is his house.
Oh.
He comes home. Gordo is in his house.
Okay, so wait, does he live here?
No, okay, so Gordo, all grown up now, and his son Gordy Jr. are here. And John's like, why are you in my house?
Right.
Apparently they're here because his TV's out again and the kid's using his TV to play a baseball video game. And because his wife Linda won't let him cook in the house because he melted a frying pan once.
Okay.
So he just went into Johnny's house to cook.
Okay.
This is, they're that good of friends. They've been best friends and neighbors literally their entire lives.
I don't care how good of friends I am with somebody, I would not tolerate this. But yeah, Gordy... The adult, Gordo, is played by Noah Emmerich, 62 credits for him, including The Truman Show, another really great movie, Super 8, and an episode of The West Wing. He was a person who beat up Sam Seahorn's character in that series. Not, like, we didn't actually see that happen, but he did it back in the day, and that's how we knew him. His son is played by...
One more thing for Noah I have to mention. This is how he's recognizable to me. He was a very important character in The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Only in 2 episodes, plus 1 episode of Walking Dead World Beyond. But he's Dr. Jenner.
Okay.
He is the guy that worked at the CDC. And I don't... Is it a spoiler at this point to mention something that happened in season 1 of The Walking Dead? Or was it... Maybe it was season 2. It was the season finale.
Okay,
1 or
spoiler
2.
alert for Walking Dead.
Big deal!
Okay.
He's the one who told them everybody already has the disease.
Oh.
It's too late. It's already spread to every human being. That was a big reveal.
Gotcha.
So he's the one who was like, yeah, we're all screwed.
Okay.
And then he killed himself.
That's...
Dr. Jenner.
Okay.
Big deal within the story.
Sorry, Gordo.
Gordy Jr. Okay, so Gordo is what we call Dad.
Right.
The son is credited as Gordy Jr., age 10.
He's played by an unrecognizable Michael Cera.
Yeah, I had no idea that was him until
Right.
I took these notes.
Right.
I was like, really?
Yes. 106 credits for him, including where he basically made his start in Arrested Development, that series, Superbad, and Molly's Game. He played a very against type in Molly's Game. He basically played a villain. So I don't know if you're familiar with Molly's Game at all, or like anything to do with that story. But basically, there was a book that this was based on, and it was about someone who ran poker games, and there was a player X that was mentioned in the book. She didn't reveal who player X was, even after all her legal troubles. It was based on a true story. And player X, played by Michael Cera, was kind of an a-hole character, and it actually turned out to be Tobey Maguire, who this was actually supposed to be. Or at least that was the rumor. But Michael Cera played that character in the movie.
Okay.
And he was great as kind of a, not very nice guy. It was actually surprising because it was very against type for that actor who plays the kind of quirky nice guy type
He
characters.
also, of course, was Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yes,
in
of
all
course.
of the Scott Pilgrim
Yep.
movies.
Mm-hmm. There was more than
I
one.
thought there were at least 2, no?
I'm pretty sure there was only one.
I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there was a sequel of some sorts.
There might have been, but I didn't think it was involved Michael Cera.
I don't know.
Well,
He is Scott Pilgrim, wherever Scott Pilgrim appeared.
So yeah, when he comes in, he calls John uncle, and basically John is like, I'm not your uncle, kid. It's like, whoa, who whizzed in your Wheaties? Like, I know you're going having a
his woman just left him. He's like, what are you doing in my house? I'm trying to be depressed.
Right. Gordo complains about not investing in Yahoo, which is kind of a dated reference because Yahoo is not really super big nowadays.
Yeah, but it just went up 5 points
Right.
the day that they're talking.
If this were made in modern times, we would be talking about Google and not Yahoo.
Even that, I think, is old.
You think so?
The rise of Google is a long time ago.
Okay. So, Gordo mentions that Samantha, his wife, actually called Linda. We don't get to see Linda yet, but she's played by Melissa Fitzgerald. 19 credits for her, including a regular on as Carol on The West Wing. Some reunion shows of that show, including a staged redo of an episode that was like a special election episode that aired on HBO, which included Sterling K. Brown in the role of Leo, because the original Leo, John Spencer, died before that show concluded.
Okay.
She was also in The Truman Show as well.
Yes. So Gordo is taking Gordy fishing.
Yes.
Gordy invites John to go with them. He declines, but he says, hey, can my son use your old fishing equipment? Which is how we're going to send Gordy off to look for fishing equipment in the closet, and he finds Frank's old fireman chest.
Yes.
So we're going to go through it and start looking at what's in this chest.
And it turns out to be an old ham radio of their dad's. Or actually, it was John's dad. And I keep forgetting that he's not also the father.
They're like best friends.
Right.
It seemed like literally every night
Right.
they slept at one or each other's house.
Right.
At least every time we saw the kids, they were together.
Right. So they end up plugging in and trying to use it. It's not working because it's basically out-of-date technology.
Yeah, they had to explain to Gordy like what a ham radio even
Right.
is, that you need a special license to be able to talk on it.
Mm-hmm. And then Gordy's wife, Linda, comes in and sends Gordy Jr. to bed. At home, John calls his mother, leaves a message. On the news, they're talking about the Aurora Borealis, and they're talking nonsense, basically.
Yeah, so this is Dick Cavett.
Yes.
We've talked about him before because
We have.
he was in Beetlejuice.
Yes, he was.
But he had a lot of solo. I just combined the words self and cameo. I don't know why I said solo.
Gotcha.
He had a lot of self and cameo appearances, but he was a late night talk show host.
Yes.
So in this video clip, he is talking to Brian Greene, not our Brian Greene, but spelled the same.
Nope.
This is Brian Greene, the physicist. This is a real life person. He's best known for his work on string theory.
Okay.
Fun fact, I did end up looking at the original script for this movie.
Yep.
because I found that. I thought it might be helpful for trying to match up some of these characters I was having a hard time with. And it wasn't that much help because it was so much different. There were so many differences in the original script. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read enough to be like, this isn't helpful.
Right.
There weren't even Aurora Borealis in the original script.
Okay. What was the explanation
It was
in the script?
something about a satellite, or I don't even know. They made wishes on something. They both made wishes. I don't know. It was different.
Okay, let's stick with the Aurora Borealis then.
But the fun fact is, in the script, this was actually, this little TV role was written for Stephen Hawking.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who was supposed to be being interviewed.
So was this an actual interview that took place? Or
I don't think so. No, this was filmed for the movie, because these aren't self-appearances. These are actor credits.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not an archive footage credit. There are archive footage credits in this movie for all, like, the baseball stuff.
Right.
This isn't on that list. This is listed as acting credits. So I'm pretty sure this interview was designed for the movie.
Gotcha.
So yeah, physicist Brian Greene is talking about the string theory. And they're talking about the Aurora Borealises, and they mention, like, time paradoxes.
They actually bring up string theory.
Yeah, that's what Brian Greene is known for, string theory.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I already said that.
Oh, okay. And basically they're just yada-yadaing. They're trying to give us an explanation for what's happening here without actually giving us an explanation.
Right. And it's an explanation that the characters aren't paying any attention to, but it's in the background for the audience to hear.
So I'm maybe not too familiar with the science behind Aurora Borealis, but is there any actual science regarding, like, Aurora Borealis and time travel, or
not
anything?
that I'm aware of?
Because
although Langoliers,
okay,
we do it there.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
So, I mean, maybe there's something. I don't know.
All right.
Maybe we need to look at Brian Greene's actual, like, real life work and see if there's anything about this in there.
Gotcha. So John hears a voice on the radio who is asking him if he's licensed to talk on the radio, and basically John says, "I don't even know how to work this thing," and basically he says, "Okay, well, if you're not licensed, you have to get off. It's supposed to be for emergencies only." We see on the other side, but we don't see the actual person.
Right.
We
just see John's talking to somebody.
And of course, if you know anything about this movie going in, you know who
right.
this is.
I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise if you'd ever seen even the trailer.
Right, yeah.
But they're keeping it a little candid still.
Right. So he asks John where he's broadcasting from. John says he's from Queens. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly where this mystery man is from.
Yeah, they're both in Bayside, New York.
And then we see...
and here's an interesting tidbit. I don't know if you even noticed this, but on Frank's side of this conversation, we also see a TV. And it's also Brian Greene, a much younger Brian Greene on that TV talking.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was actually kind of confused by that. Like, wait, are they playing the same interview?
No, he was much younger there. That might have been real footage of him from when he was younger.
Gotcha.
But he I'm guessing that the context is he's the expert on Aurora Borealises. So since in both timelines auroras are happening, this is the dude on TV talking about it.
I didn't even think there was anything to be an expert on. I just thought it was lights in the sky, and that was it. So on the other side, basically this mystery man side, we see New York Mets banners, and basically New York Mets stuff. They start hitting it off. John laughs at one of his new friend's comments, and they start talking about the Mets. But Mystery Man brings up a game from the 1969 World Series, which John remembers exactly what happened in that series. And just as he's talking about it, the signal cuts out, leaving John very confused.
Yeah, so John's talking about it obviously in past tense.
Right.
Frank's talking about it in future tense.
Right.
They both think the other's acting really weird in the way they're talking.
Right.
I also want to point out that we see it for the first time here, this photo on Frank's desk, that we're going to be seeing this photo throughout the movie as the timelines change. And right now it's a photo of teenage John and his mom with the dog Elvis on the porch steps. And this photo is going to change a lot as we go through the film.
Right. On the other side, we finally reveal that the mystery man is Frank. Big surprise there. John's father in 1969. And I have my note here which says we seem to be hearing the same news report in both timelines. So that's the Dick Cavett thing that you were just talking about.
Yeah, well, they didn't show Dick Cavett in both, but they showed Brian Greene in both.
So Frank sings the Cracker Jacks baseball song.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Yes,
Take the name of that song.
Right. I couldn't think of the actual name.
And also one really cool thing, you blink and you miss it. But right after this radio conversation, Frank bumps into the dog.
Yeah.
like trips over him, breaks a pane of glass.
Okay.
On the like they have glass between the rooms, breaks a pane of glass, and then John walks past the same broken glass.
Oh, that's pretty
so
cool.
the idea is that probably didn't happen the first time, but he's all frazzled about this conversation he
Right.
just had and caused an accident, broke a glass.
Interesting.
But also, in 30 years, no one ever replaced that piece of broken glass.
I was just thinking that, yeah. Basically the same time that Frank is singing to his son, we see John singing, Take Me Out to the Ball Game as well.
Yeah, he's on the couch falling asleep, and he sings the song to himself.
So we cut to the barbecue. I think they're watching the Mets game.
Yeah, they're watching Game 1.
Yep.
We're back in 1969. We're at Frank's house. They just finished a baseball game.
Okay.
So we have here all of the fire department, which
Yep.
is where Frank works, as well as the police department. They just played a game against each other. They're razzing each other about how their game went.
Gotcha. So we meet Stacie DeLeon, played by...
DeLeon.
DeLeon? That's as close as I'm going to get. I'm sorry. Played by not Andrew. Andre Brogner. 65 credits for him, including 4 episodes of House as Dr. House's psychiatrist. Homicide: Life on the Streets, he was a regular on that series.
100 episodes of that.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which he was also a regular
Yep, all
on.
153 episodes of that series.
As well as Men of a Certain Age with Scott Bakula.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yes, and he died on December 11th, 2023 at the age of 61. That's way too young. Yeah, he's a great actor. Usually I just stick to like 3 shout-out credits, but I did 4 in that case because I just felt like doing it. But
Yeah, I'll only go past 3 if like they really speak to me. I was like, we have to bring up this, and we have to bring up that.
I mean, in the case of Andre Brogner, all these kind of spoke to me, and
Right,
there are things I
right.
needed to bring up.
So yeah, Satch is a cop. He's friends with Frank, probably because of the baseball league.
Right.
But of course, he's going to play a bigger role in both timelines.
Right. Yeah. His wife Lonnie is played by Karen Glave. 92 credits for her, including another Dennis Quaid flick, The Day After Tomorrow, an episode of Handmaid's Tale, which recently concluded its run.
It did. We got to talk about that later,
where?
off the air.
Okay.
I mean, me and you, we got to talk about it.
Okay, so you don't want to do like a podcast of the final episode of Handmaid's Tale?
That would be a little weird to just be like, let's talk about this one episode. But I've been waiting to talk to you about it.
Gotcha. And The Shape of Water.
And let's remind people that we're recording this like 3 weeks before it airs.
Yes.
We're not that far behind in
No.
talking about things
No.
in pop culture.
So Satch gives...
She was also in one episode of Warehouse 13. And her, Lonnie's involvement here is we learned she's a doctor.
Yes.
She works at the hospital with Julia. Julia's a nurse. Lonnie just got off of a 36-hour shift, and Julia's like, that's why you're the doctor and I'm the nurse. And I thought that she was going to have a bigger part in this movie, but she really doesn't. Like,
No.
we see her in a couple scenes.
Right.
But we don't do anything with this character.
No. Satch gives tickets to what I assume is a Mets game in the World Series.
Game 3 tickets
Gotcha.
is what they were told. I don't know. Maybe that was not as big a deal in 1969 as it would be today.
They get the tickets, but then I don't think they get to go to the game.
We never bring this up again.
Right. No.
Game 3 comes, and nobody talks about going to the game.
Right.
It doesn't come up. Now, in the original timeline, I can see why we wouldn't have, because Frank died.
Right.
So we're going to forget about baseball. But in the new timeline, yeah, everybody has these tickets. Nobody seems to remember they exist.
Right. All right. So after this, the scene, we get to the present day. Satch is now running.
The present day meaning 1999.
Right, 1999.
Which is so confusing.
Not our present day.
A couple times during my notes, I wrote 1999 when I meant 1969 because my brain went 30 years ago.
Right.
And then I'm like, no, 1999's the future,
Right.
not the
Yes.
past.
Yes. Satch is now basically running the police department, working with John. They find a skeleton of a person that they're digging up. I guess some of the people that were working here found the
It was
body.
a construction crew.
Right.
They tore down a diner, and the construction crew stumbled upon this skeleton.
I believe one of the people here is a forensic tech played by Desmond.
No, we actually meet him way later.
Okay, never mind then. Well, I got his credits now, so that tech that we meet way later is played by Desmond Campbell. 89 credits for him, including X-Men Apocalypse, Snake Eyes, and an episode of Tech Wars.
He also is in an episode of Shadowhunters, and he was in Saw 3D.
Tech Wars, by the way, was the series of movies and that was based on the books written by William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek. John decides to go and talk to the neighbor, and we see Fred and Joanna Shepard. Fred is played by Nesbitt Blaisdell.
I have her name as Laura Shepard. What did you call her?
Joanna? Oh, you know what? That actually might be the character's name and not the actress.
Joan is the actress.
Yeah.
The character... Okay. Let's talk about Fred first.
Okay. Fred, he's played by Nesbitt Blaisdell. 28 credits for him, including The Mothman Prophecies, Dead Man Walking, and an episode of Spencer for Hire.
And Mrs. Winterbourne.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Okay.
The wife, so I have her name as Laura Shepard.
Okay.
Played by Joan Henney.
I got the actress's name right. 54 credits were including Secret Window, which is a movie I absolutely hated, but it was based on a Stephen King property. An episode of Due South, and the TV movie Tech War. Once again, William Shatner created that.
And I also have, she was in the film Dead Silence. So yeah, these are, again, just the neighbors of this diner. So he's just kind of canvassing the area, see what people know. They don't seem to know much, but John notices photos of their son, Jack Shepard, who's a cop. And this is going to, of course, become important.
Right.
They said, yeah, he died a long time ago. We also, on the mantle, see a photo of a younger Laura, that's the mom, and learn she used to be a nurse.
We don't quite meet Jack yet, but he's played by Sean Doyle.
Oh, you're killing me, jumping all over the place.
I'm sorry.
Now I gotta find where we meet him in my notes to find my notes on him.
All right, 100 credits, including a couple of episodes of Star Trek Discovery, 27 episodes of The Expanse, and 43 episodes of Big Love. He was no stranger to the sci-fi genre.
Yeah, I didn't even... Oh, there he is.
Yep.
5 episodes of Son of a Critch, which is one of our Nova Scotia shows.
Yes, yep.
I missed what you said because I was looking for him.
Discovery,
8 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, 27 of Expanse. He was in an episode of Lost.
Oh, okay.
I don't know which one, but Jack Shepard.
Yes.
That's the main character in Lost. So
right.
I found that an interesting little tidbit.
Also, the other interesting thing is the present day in this movie is 1999, which is also the present day of Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so present day, John visits his mom and sets up a VCR. Boy, does that bring up memories. Hey, kids, do any of you know what a VCR is? I kind of feel like nowadays this is the same place as what is a record player.
Right.
But yeah.
And Julia, I have put this 3 pages of actor notes. She got takeout from Barney the Delivery Man. He was uncredited. He's played by Barney Chang. He was in 1 episode of New Girl, Mission Impossible 3, and also has some directing and producing credits. And I'm going to point out Chinese food. We said before, Dad said I'd take you in Chinese takeout any day, and
yes,
that's what they're eating.
Aww,
Chinese takeout.
Nice little callback there. He can't figure out how to set the clock. I can relate to that. I was never able to set this clock.
Yeah, and she's like, don't worry about that part.
His mom is played by NH Elizabeth Mitchell, same exact actress. We learned that Frank died 30 years ago, and the anniversary is the next day.
Right. We know she's still working at the hospital.
Yeah.
We talk about that.
So as she's talking, we see Frank playing catch with his son, Johnny, until he's sent to bed. We once again see the Aurora Borealis lights, and Frank is just trying to call his son in... basically in the future.
Right, he doesn't know it's his son. He's trying to
to
call the mystery guy he was talking to yesterday.
Right. But yeah, he doesn't...
because he wants to know how... Because everything that John said about Game 1 happened. So he wants to know, how the frick did you predict all of those details?
Right. So John ends up getting on, and John's very amused, saying, it wasn't tough. The game happened 30 years ago. Frank thinks this is a joke, asks about Game 2, which John knows the answer to that as well. Little Johnny comes into the room. Frank ends up calling him Little Chief. Older John reacts to this and says, what, you call your son Little Chief too? And he ends up asking about his name, and of course, it's his dad's name.
Yeah, so he thinks Gordo's messing with him from next door.
Yep, basically a prank. And basically they start getting into a heated conversation.
Yeah, Frank reads his call letters. We see it's the exact same letters that are on John's radio.
Basically, they're both back and forth, kind of threatening each other until Frank puts his cigarette down. Basically he's getting angry and he's forgetting about his cigarette. He ends up lighting his desk on fire.
Yeah, he burns the desk.
Right.
And
in the present day, he sees a cigarette burn
just
form.
appear on
Right,
the desk,
right.
right? And he's like, "You just burned the desk."
This is enough to convince him what's
Right,
really going on.
John knows, like, "Hey,
Right.
that's my dad," but
Right.
Frank's gonna take a little more convincing.
Right. And so basically they end up losing contact.
Frank's like, "Stay the frick away from my family. Don't know who you are," but he's feeling threatened because John's like, "I live at this address," and he's trying to convince him, and Frank's taking it as a threat, right?
Johnny ends up in the So Johnny ends up in the rain. He stops Gordo.
Okay, before they get disconnected, a very important detail: John tells Frank that he's gonna die.
Oh, right, yeah.
This is important.
Right. Yep.
He tells him his dad died. You're gonna die on October 12th, 1969, in the Buxton fire, which is tomorrow. And he's pleading with him. Butch always told Mom, if you ignored your instincts and went the other way, you'd have made it.
Right.
And Frank's not listening to any of this. He doesn't believe a word of it, but he hears it, right? So John's pleading with him, like, please, just don't go in the fire or go against your instincts, and like, you're gonna die, and I need you not to die. And he's pleading with him, and then they get disconnected. So
Johnny ends up in the rain and stops Gordo and starts talking about the fact that he just talked to his dad and wants to stop him from going in the building tomorrow. And of course, that doesn't make him sound crazy at all.
And Gordo's like, let's go inside and talk.
Frank looks at his sleeping son and plays through the conversation in his mind that he just had. We cut to the fire station. They're watching the Mets game.
Yep, game 2.
And suddenly, exactly what John said would happen happens. As the alarm goes off, there's a fire.
And they're called to an abandoned warehouse.
Yeah. And Frank is clearly shaken at this time. Frank's boss, Butch, tells him not to go in.
Yeah, and on the way, by the way, Gib is listening to the game on the radio, and they won the game, just like John predicted.
Right, and Frank would usually be excited about this, but he doesn't react to it.
He's getting more and more, frustrated, because he's like, whoa, this is crazy.
He ends up seeing the Buxton Seed sign, which means, the Buxton Fire, Frank goes to the building with another fire. Wait, what?
Okay,
No. Okay, so, no, why is this down here? So my notes are all screwed up here. All right, so...
Is this where you got the Con Ed people tucked in?
Maybe. So, basically, he approaches the building.
Okay, well, before that...
Yeah.
They weren't going to go... Nobody was going to go in.
Right.
Because they're told it's a vacant building, we're just going to drown it.
Right.
But a girl comes out.
Right.
Are you caught up with that in your notes?
Yeah. The girl is... the credited as Runaway Girl, I think?
Nope. This is Stoned Teenage Girl.
Oh, okay.
This is Stoned Teenage Girl, played by Nicole Breyer.
Gotcha.
She has 6 total credits, including the 2006 film Just Another Romantic Wrestling Comedy.
So is the...
And I matched up her picture. This is her.
Okay, so the girl that is in the building is actually a Runaway Girl, right?
Right.
Okay, so I just got that backwards.
Okay, so yes, this is Stone Teenage Girl, and she's pleading. She says, my sister is on the top floor of the building, passed out.
Right.
You have to help her.
All right.
So Frank and Gib head in.
Yeah, so they go into the building. He goes up a flight. The stairs end up falling down, so he can't go up. Gibbs specifically can't go up. We see John at the bar with in the present day with Gordo and Satch. And at first I thought they didn't age Satch at all.
Oh, they did.
But they did.
They definitely did.
Yeah.
The 3 of them are having a drink in Frank's memory on the day that he died. Which brings up the first question after we change this: is why the frick are the 3 of them having a drink together now?
I mean, he still dies, I guess.
I mean, after.
Oh, yeah.
They're there because it's the anniversary of his death.
Right, which wouldn't necessarily be the case if he dies from cancer after this. Yeah. So they start talking about memories. John apparently wanted to be a cop for Halloween. And then we see Frank grabbing the girl in the fire. She's alive.
This is Teenage Runaway.
Played by Jessica Meyer.
Yes.
Only credit.
Right.
He ends up picking her up. He goes to the window. The fire truck ladder is stuck. And this person is played by, is Gino, credited as Pedestal Man Gino.
Pedestal Man Gino is the one who tells him, hey, it's stuck. We got to find another way. And I don't know if you read about him.
I did not.
Okay. Chuck Margiotti, he's an actual New York firefighter.
Okay.
And
that explains his, stunt credits.
Sadly, he died in 9/11.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He was a first responder that died at the towers on 9/11. Which was crazy powerful to read. And then I'm thinking, like, a lot of these background actors, the firemen, probably are real firemen.
Right.
We're filming this in New York.
Right.
We need 100 firefighters. They probably brought in the actual fire people.
That would make sense.
And this was filmed in 1999, came out in 2000. These are the first responders.
Right.
This is them.
Yeah. Wow, that's craziness.
Yeah, so he had 6 acting credits and 7 stunt credits.
The movies that he appeared in, Kiss of Death as an acting credit, and Kings of New York and Malcolm X as stunt credits. And yeah, basically the fire truck ladder is stuck, so he can't get down that way. Frank hears his son's voice telling him to go the other way. Frank listens to this voice, and we see John starting to drop a glass in the present day.
Yeah, so he's having some kind of reaction while
Right.
Satch and Gordo are talking. John's, like, losing touch with reality.
Yeah. We're basically seeing Frank's memories, or I'm sorry, John's memories changing.
Right.
As Frank slides down like a staircase or something.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Right.
But yeah, so he came to this intersection and his instinct said go left, right?
Right.
And he's
Yeah.
remembering John telling him if you just went the other way.
Right.
So he goes against his instincts, goes towards the fire right, and found this slide that brought him all the way down the building, saving both his life and the runaway girl.
And yeah, so they end up going into the water, and we finally see John's glass breaking. This is really lovely done, by the way. And this is the point that kind of reminds me of the butterfly effect, in the sense that when something changes, well, and they'll screw around with this too. John will have all the old memories, but also the new memories as well.
Right.
Which raises some questions later in this film.
It
But,
does.
yeah.
It does. We'll talk about that. But in this moment, that's what's happening, is he's getting new memories. Couple things with the way this is playing out on the screen. One is every time we're going to see a time shift, we're going to deal with items falling.
Yeah.
In this case, he dropped his glass, and then Frank dropped his fire helmet
Yes.
out the window. So the fire helmet's falling through
Yes.
this whole scene as well. And then also, just in this one, we get this weird eyeball spin thing.
Right.
Very reminiscent of both Lost
Mm-hmm.
and the Quantum Leap Revival.
Yes.
They both did the weird eyeball spinning thing, and that's what we're seeing here.
Right.
It doesn't happen the other times we get new memories, but in this case, we do this weird eyeball spinny thing showing us that he's
Right.
got new memories. At the bar, this is where we meet bar waitress. She comes over and asks if everything's okay, gets them a towel. She's played by Bridget Kingsley. She was in a whole bunch of Christmas movies and the Dark Rising franchise.
Okay. John asks Satch and Gordy about his dad not dying in a fire. Now apparently he died from cancer, which I'm assuming did not happen on this day.
He died from lung cancer 10 years ago, so approximately 1989.
Right, so they're now in this bar for completely different reasons than what they originally were.
Right. I mean, I guess maybe the three of them are just really good friends still.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe they have a drink every Friday night or whatever.
Right. So they specifically bring up the fact that he died from cancer as a result of the cigarettes.
Right.
Which is a little silly that they're going to take this track, but it's still kind of...
I mean, they needed to
Yeah.
have another thing that could be
That
preventable
could be prevented, yeah.
without a specific moment in time that
Right.
we're preventing it.
Right. John says talking to his dad via the ham radio was real. And of course, Satch and Gordy have no idea what the hell he's
they're
talking
like,
about.
What, are you okay?
I mean, has John not already explained this to Gordy?
he
because
did, but I don't think like
that he believes him?
I don't think he believed him. I don't think he even knew what the heck words were coming out of his mouth
Right.
because he was just speaking nonsense.
At this point, is Gordy really just concerned about his friend?
Probably. I mean, you would expect
Right.
that's the case.
We don't really deal with that
Right.
much, but yeah.
Also,
I mean, if you came to me and said that you were talking to your dead father on the radio, I would actually believe you.
I also have a question, one
Okay.
of these time travel logic questions.
All right.
If, in this moment,
Yeah.
Dad's been saved, John's the only one who remembers the past timeline.
Yes.
Did this Gordo even run into him in the rain yesterday?
Oh, okay.
Saying he's in the rain because he has to save his dad?
That's
Probably
a good,
not.
That's actually a good question.
This is actually probably the first time Gordo's hearing it.
Okay.
Because that wouldn't have happened in this timeline.
You know, the one thing
Right?
this movie doesn't do quite right is it doesn't really make clear what actually is happening in the timeline now. Like, there, you know, we get some, like, you know, hints of what the current timeline actually is, but it's kind of too subtle and like not really cluing us in what's actually happened and what actually hasn't happened.
Right.
But yeah. Frank in the past laughs and yells, "Little Chief!" Frank in the past tries to call his son in the future. He's now a believer. He gets his younger son to respond. He's like, "Little Chief!" And his son comes out like, "What? I'm right here. And you woke me up." And then Frank decides once again to try to teach his son how to ride a bike. And despite his son's reluctance, he says, "I won't let go until you're ready." And he basically, when his son feels the right balance, he lets go, and his son is riding around, and he's all excited. Beautiful
so
scene.
it went much better this time, and of course this night went a whole lot better than it must have the first time around.
Right. I'm imagining that little Johnny was not quite this happy the first time. But so this is a very lovely scene. I love all these scenes between father and son. That's one of the reasons why I thought this would be a great movie to cover today. But he lets. So his son is now riding a bike. John returns home and brings out a scrapbook and notices in the desk his father writing and burning into the desk that he's still alive. So that's the other interesting thing.
It says, "I'm still here, Chief," because he can't get him on the radio. He's been trying. But he's like, "I need to get a message to him." Right.
So it's kind of interesting that, like, it's happening in real time in both timelines.
Because the time
Because
is
of the
changing.
Aurora Borealis?
No, because it's changing in this moment.
Right.
Before he did it, it hadn't changed yet.
Gotcha. So that's the other thing that kind of makes it similar to Quantum Leap in the sense that until the change is made, it doesn't actually change anything.
But
even if you're on a trajectory to change it.
But you also have to believe that once he was done burning that message into the desk, that John's going to remember seeing that message his whole life. Like, my dad's crazy. What do you mean you're still here? That's been, he's been seeing that for the last 30 years on this desk.
Right. Well, now I finally get it.
Also, you mentioned he was looking at photos in a scrapbook. In the scrapbook, the original article was about his dad dying.
Yeah.
And now that article's been changed to say that Frank was a hero and he saved the girl's life. So not only did he save his dad's life, but this girl originally died and now she's alive. I wish she had come up in the story somewhere, because she doesn't. We don't hear anything else about her, but her life was also saved because of this.
Right. So John gets on the radio. This time they both know who the other is.
Mm-hmm. And also, that desk photo, we see it again.
Yeah.
Now it's the whole family. Dad is there too, along with Mom and John and Elvis.
Frank gives him credit for saving his life. They laugh, not knowing how this happened. John has a bunch of new memories, but the old ones as well.
Yeah, this is him explaining how this is working. Like, he has two sets of memories.
John says he has to be more careful. He can't lose him again. And Frank swears that he will be careful and that he won't lose him like that again.
Which is also kind of clunky because he doesn't die like that again.
Right, yeah. You already know he died from cancer. John tells his dad he's 36. He talks about his wife blowing out his arm.
Saying he's not married.
Right. Becoming a cop. They continue to talk, getting to know each other. John telling him about the future, which, by the way, is extremely ill-advised.
Yeah, it goes into this basically a montage style where we're just getting bits and pieces of their conversation.
Yeah.
We're not hearing the whole thing. He tells them about the whole rest of the baseball series, which is important.
Yeah, at the same time, you're ruining the series for your dad.
He wants to know. He's asking.
Right.
And eventually, he also tells him that he's going to die of lung cancer and he needs to stop smoking.
Right.
And Frank's like, nah, that's not true. Really? You're not going to believe him after all this?
Right. So basically, his dad is reluctant to go. He's getting tired.
Yeah.
But he's reluctant to go because he doesn't want to lose this relationship.
Yeah, they're playing the I don't want to hang up first game.
Right. No, you hang up. No, you hang up first. But anyway, John assures them that they will not lose it. And before he goes, Frank says he loves him. John says he does too, and that he missed him. Frank goes to visit his wife.
John calls his mom first, leaves another message with her. Never tells her, like, this is happening.
Right.
But he's like, I'm going to see you tomorrow, or whatever he says to her.
Yes. So Frank goes to the hospital. He hugs her. I'm sure this entire scene is purely a reaction to almost dying and not.
Right.
And being aware that his life has changed.
And being aware of the
Yeah.
fact that he's been
Yeah.
talking to his
Right.
son.
Yeah.
But doesn't tell her either.
Right.
Doesn't
Yeah.
tell Julia, like, guess what? I don't know if he doesn't want to worry her or he doesn't believe it, but he doesn't tell her any of this.
I think maybe he's worried that she's not going to believe him.
And he tells her that he tucked Johnny in at Gordo's house before coming here. I'm going to remind you that prior to this whole hours-long conversation with John, then we had the bicycle thing.
Yes.
And before that, Johnny was already asleep. He woke Johnny up.
So you think he's lying?
No, I'm just like, what time did he drop his kid off at the neighbor's?
Yeah, hey.
He was already asleep. You woke him up. You go out after bedtime to learn how to ride a bicycle.
Right.
And at some point, you're just dropping him off at the neighbors to sleep over.
Right. And probably, I'm kind of curious as to the explanation for why you're doing that, so wait.
Right.
Also,
Also, we never meet Gordy's parents.
that's what I was just about to ask. Did we ever meet them?
I
No?
don't think so. Maybe
No?
in the background somewhere,
Right,
but we never
okay.
meet them.
Right. So she has to intervene with a patient who's about to be given the wrong drug, which would have killed him. And it turns out that this is Jack.
This is Jack Shepard. We as the audience recognize him from the photos we saw.
Right. Yep.
Previously, when his parents in 1999 said he died a long time ago. This could have just been one of those moments, you know,
Right.
where it's a nice little butterfly effect. We saved this man's life. He was originally going to die, and now she's here to save him.
Right.
Of course, that's not how it's going to go.
Well, I'm actually kind of curious. How did the original time...
Well, she wasn't working.
Oh.
She wasn't at work
That's
because her
right,
husband
right,
died.
Right, of course.
So she didn't go to work that night.
Yeah.
So the doctor did administer medicine that killed him because
Right.
it interacted with the other drugs he was on. But she was there to save his life in this moment. And my notes is I just watched Elizabeth Mitchell save Jack Shepard's life, and I'm not watching Lost.
So we see John dreaming of a funeral.
It's midnight. We see midnight on both the hospital clock and John's clock. But then when we start seeing dropping, his alarm clock drops, it's 5:05 a.m.
Wow.
So he spent 5 hours in this dream.
Wow.
That's got to have been a rough night.
Yeah. And he tries to call his mom, but he ends up reaching... Okay. So he ends up reaching the deli, and he ends up doing this twice, and he gets hung up on
Yeah, he thinks he's
the
got the
second time.
wrong number.
My question is, so the timeline has now changed.
Right. He
To
has
the point
memories.
where he's basically killed his mom.
He's killed his mom.
He should know that his mom is dead because he should
Here's
remember...
what I think is
Okay.
he thinks it was just a dream. He dreamt about it all night.
So...
He has both sets of memories.
So that he thinks he's remembering the
He thinks
dream.
he's just
and-
remembering a dream that his mom died. He hasn't
Okay.
caught up to the fact that, no, things changed again.
Okay,
Because it all happened while he was asleep.
gotcha. Okay, makes sense. John goes to the library to talk to Sam, but now she doesn't know who he is.
Right, so his mom must have had something to do with them getting together.
Maybe.
We don't explore
Right.
that, but
Right.
but yeah, he never even dated her in this scenario.
And we never get back to this. She's just done as a character. I don't think we see her again, do we?
We see a lot of her. They're together at the end of the movie. What do you mean?
Oh, okay, I missed that
They're
completely.
together. They have kids.
Okay, I guess I missed all that.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
All right, so she doesn't know him, but she does recognize him as being the neighbor of Gordo
Right.
and Satch, I think.
Gordo and Linda,
Linda, okay, yeah.
the wife.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, they don't have any kind of history now.
Right.
That's just been completely deleted.
so he's kind of freaking her out, and he apologizes and leaves.
All right. John at the office is talked to by Satch, who's giving him some shit, saying, "Hey, don't disrespect me." And what is this about?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what he's upset about.
Right.
I don't know if it was because he came to work drunk.
I mean, maybe.
I was really confused by this,
Right,
though.
yeah. And then the skeleton they dug up turns out to be part of the Nightingale
Yeah, the
murders.
preliminary forensic comes back. It matches the MO of the Nightingale murders.
Right.
So they haven't ID'd the body yet, but they are confident it's a Nightingale kill because of the glass tape. I don't even know what glass tape is, but that's the signature thing, I guess, that the hands are all bound with glass tape. And Satch says, yeah, that makes 10.
Right.
Another time where we can question memories.
Right.
But
Yes.
John's like, I know this case. There were only 3. What are you talking about 10?
Right. And basically, effectively, John has helped create a serial killer case. That was not the
I think 3 was already considered serial killer, but in the original history after 3, they stopped. He was never identified, but the murders stopped.
Right, because he died in the hospital.
Right, but nobody knows that, because nobody knows who he is. So in this now new timeline, there's been 10 murders, and Satch is like, you should know better than anyone, John, how many deaths there are. You've been over these files 1,000 times.
Right.
Well, why would that be?
Because one of the victims was his mother, which, again, how does he not remember that?
Right.
Like, I guess the other
maybe
stuff
he's
happened
just in denial. Maybe the memories are all there, but he's not paying attention to them.
Okay.
Maybe.
I guess. But...
I don't know.
So John calls his dad and tells him that his mom is dead.
It's just the way you said that.
And all about the Nightingale murders. His dad is freaking out, basically because this is something he's hearing about on the news. And that the two of them have changed history in a bad way. This is where Al shows up. You changed history, and now your mom is dead.
Right.
But his mom was not supposed to be at the hospital that night. He was not supposed to save Jack's life. John has a way to stop.
But they, of course, don't know what happened.
Right.
They just know something happened. And that's just the first thing, is she went to work when she wasn't supposed to. They don't know what happened at work.
Right. John has a way to stop everything using the info that he has at his disposal. He knows where this killer is going to be and when. And Frank is not totally sold on this, but John basically yells at him.
Yeah, he's like, I'm a firefighter, not a cop. I don't know how to do this.
Right. And so basically John wants him to follow one of the victims to prevent her death. Right.
So we learned that Mom's supposed to die on October 22nd. That's next week.
Right.
And Frank wants to just take her out of town, right? And that would probably work. But they're like, but there's like 6 other people who are going to die that weren't supposed to die.
Right.
So you have to try and stop this dude.
All right. So we cut to the bar.
Yeah, so we're told the next kill is Carrie Reynolds. She leaves and they're all nurses, by the way. That's the thing.
Oh, yep.
She leaves the hospital at 6 o'clock, shows up at Cozy's bar at 6:30, leaves at 7:30, and is found dead behind the bar at 8. And my note here is the entire rest of the movie could have been resolved if both of these men, instead of playing vigilante, went and talked to Satch.
Okay. Yeah.
Get him involved.
Right.
Bring both versions of Satch to the radio.
Yeah.
Let him talk to himself, and he'll have to believe himself that he's him.
Right.
And let him handle this.
Yeah.
In both timelines.
That makes sense. All right, so at the bar, we do see Jack. He's kind of in the background. And we hear Carrie. She's walking by. She's played by Kristen Bishop. She was in an episode of The West Wing, the 1975 Japanese film titled The Little Mermaid, which I think is the exact story as the Disney version of The Little Mermaid. So I think that was actually a remake of this Japanese movie.
I mean, every Disney film is a remake of a classic fairy tale.
Gotcha.
They've all been told 1,000 times.
Right. I just never knew that there was actually a 1975 same type of movie. And she was also in Major Dad.
She was also in one episode of Warehouse 13.
She died on April 15th, 2014 at the age of 50. That's really young. The bartender is played by Jim McLeese. 22 credits for him, including Buffaloed.
He was also in one episode of In the Dark and 4 episodes of Dan for Mayor.
So as Frank is at the bar, he is noticed by the girls. One of them that he's following.
Right, and Carrie and 2 of her friends. So he's just watching Carrie, right? They think he's hitting on them.
Right.
So they buy him a drink.
Right.
And call him over.
And they know he's married, but they don't seem to care.
Yeah, they quickly clock that he's married, but they're like, what the hell?
My best guess is these 2 are the ones credited as Young Woman 1 and 2.
Yes.
So one is Jennifer Baxter, 59 credits for her, including Chicago Med.
That's actually number 2, but okay.
Okay. Oops. 2 episodes of Playmakers, which is an ill-fated ESPN series that at the start had quite a bit of buzz, but the NFL pretty much killed that series. And 2 episodes of The Newsroom.
She was also in Land of the Dead.
Yep.
And 1 episode of NCIS.
Catherine Burden, 38 credits for her, including some Christmas movies, Molly's Game, which I brought up with Michael Cera, and the movie Breach.
She was also in 1 episode of Warehouse 13 as well, and Books of Blood.
So John ends up getting a call and gets some info on the skeleton, The victim is Mary Finelli, reported missing in 1968.
Right, April 16th, 1968, which means she was the first victim. This is before the first known victim.
Right.
So now the original count was 4.
Gotcha.
Of the 10, right?
Yeah.
Because this one, she wasn't a later one, she was an earlier one. And because it's the first victim, they presume that means that the killer probably knew her, which is a big lead. Right.
And basically, John cannot find Carrie in the files, which means his dad was successful in saving Carrie's life.
Right, and Satch has never heard of Carrie Reynolds.
Right, yep. John...
But also, shouldn't he have just remembered that she shouldn't be in these files if he's read them 1,000 times?
Right. These, what memories John has and what memories John doesn't have is, like, starting to get a little blurred here. But John and Frank talk. Frank has him talk to his mother. By the way, she's still dead in this current timeline.
Right. So they saved Carrie, but he messed up because he was supposed to figure out who the killer is and catch him, but that didn't happen because he just spooked the killer away, is what happened. So he saved her just by being there with her, but didn't stop any of the future crimes.
And basically, she talks about how he's a cop, and John ends up revealing things that she relates to because he's talking about her. And she's like, oh, I guess I would get along with your mom.
Yeah, isn't that a line from Back to the Future?
Probably. Something
like,
similar.
Like your mom and I would get along.
Probably.
And it was the mom in both cases.
Yeah, I think so. And she ends up saying goodbye. And then he ends up saying goodnight to himself. Mm-hmm. And then Gordy gets on the line as well, which amuses John. And then he ends up giving Gordo a stock tip, which he's not going to say, oh, by the way.
Yeah, he says he's Santa Claus.
Right.
And he's going to give him a gift. And the gift is, remember the magic word Yahoo.
Right.
Go write that down and always remember that word.
So
it's going to become Gordo's catchphrase, the word Yahoo.
Oh.
Which means, hopefully, what he's hoping is that when Yahoo, the company, comes out, he's going to want to invest in it.
There's no evidence that Gordo is rich in the...
There is.
Is there?
Did you not watch the end of the movie?
I mean, I guess I didn't watch...
Did you clock out?
I guess so. So Gordo actually is rich at the end?
He is. We'll talk about it.
Okay. All right.
I feel like you missed the entire end of the movie.
I guess I was just watching Dennis Quaid run around the base paths and wasn't paying attention to anything else that was going on.
Okay.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, so yeah, the baseball...
We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah, I got it now.
Okay. And during this, also, he told Frank about Mary Finelli, so Frank knows that name now.
Gotcha.
And then tells him about the next victim.
Right.
He's like, we're going to keep trying. The next victim, Sissy Clark, she dies tomorrow. This killer's very active, killing a woman every night.
Right. Yeah, serial killers don't usually operate that way. They usually space out their murders.
Right.
But, yeah.
She's a nurse who also moonlights as a cocktail waitress at a lounge. She left work at 2 a.m., but was killed in her apartment sometime between 2:15 and 5 a.m., is what we know about Sissy Clark.
So, John goes and talks to Mrs. Finelli, played by Rosemary DeAngelis. 27 credits for her, including multiple Law & Order series.
8 total appearances throughout the various series.
The Orange is the New Black and The Juror. Anything else for her?
Nope.
She died on April 16th, 2020, at the age of 86. John now thinks that the killer is Daryl Simpson.
Yeah, so he ends up taking Mary's diary and yearbook from Mrs. Finelli.
Yep.
Remember, this is the skeleton they just found. And she's happy because she has some closure now that her daughter's body's been found. And he narrowed it down to there's only 3 names of people. Because remember, they think it's someone Mary knew. There's only 3 names that overlap between the diary and the yearbook. 2 of them are dead. And Daryl Simpson is the 3rd one.
Gotcha. Yes.
Which is very interesting because he's credited as Daryl Adams.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
So we didn't meet him yet in this scene, but we'll meet him soon. On the screen, we're looking at the yearbook. His name is Daryl Simpson. Every time we say his name in the canon of the movie, it's Daryl Simpson. In the credits, he's Daryl Adams. And this is one of the things I looked at in the original script. In the original script, his name was Daryl Adams.
Gotcha.
So at some point, they changed it to Daryl Simpson. I don't know why, but they didn't. The change didn't make it to the credits.
That is interesting. Okay.
It's very weird.
Yeah, I had trouble finding him for precisely that reason, but eventually I'm like, well, this has to be him. Right.
So John's convinced that this is the killer. The theory is because this dude was arrested 8 days after the last Nightingale murder. And his theory is that the murder stopped because he went to prison, and then he was released at some point, however many years ago, but he at that point had basically reformed himself and stopped killing.
By the way, I just found the Con Ed workers at the end of my notes, so that's interesting. All right, moving along from that. I won't need that.
So we go to the club
Yep.
where Sissy Clark works, or Frank goes there anyways.
And she's played by Maren Hinkle, 82 credits for her, including a regular on 2.5 Men.
Yep, she played Alan's ex-wife Judith in 84 episodes of that series.
Which, of course, starred John Cryer, who we talked about for a little while when we did Extended Family.
Yes.
And an episode of House and the movie Dark Blue.
She also plays Miriam's mother in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, credited in all 43 episodes of that series.
Meanwhile, John is interviewing Daryl Simpson, played by Rocco Sisto. 64 credits for him, including Far and Away, Donnie Brasco, and an episode of Evil.
He also was in 3 episodes of SVU and an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
I missed that one.
He did.
Yeah, so basically John starts yelling at Daryl, starts bringing up the fact that someone very important to him was killed. He shows him pictures, which, by the way, would Frank be allowed to investigate his own mother's death?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're acting like they're small town cops and they're the only ones there, but this is New York. There's
Right.
a lot of cops that could be handling this.
Yes. So basically, we see Sissy leaving the bar, but she actually doesn't leave the bar. She leaves the bar, but goes upstairs.
We see Frank,
Yeah.
for the first time,
Yep.
try and quit smoking.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Someone asked him for a smoke, and he hands his whole pack over and says he's trying to quit. So this is the first time we're getting a hint that maybe he's thinking about that.
Right. So, yeah, Frank follows her. He ends up going to the bathroom. She just goes upstairs to her apartment. I guess she lives above the bar.
No, she said she was going to change. She doesn't live above the bar. Remember, we still have to go to her apartment for her to die.
Right, okay.
This was her going to change out of her work uniform.
Gotcha, okay.
It must be like a worker's lounge, bathroom, changing area upstairs.
So where does Frank go to discover her body?
Her house.
But he wakes up from the bathroom, runs upstairs.
He doesn't run upstairs. Does he run upstairs?
I'm pretty sure he does.
I thought he leaves and goes to her apartment.
Maybe. I'm not totally sure about
Anyways,
that. Yeah.
We also in this met the lounge bartender. You have him?
I don't think I do.
He is played by David Husband. He was in the movie Wrong Turn and 14 episodes of Sailor Moon.
All right, so Satch comes in and says basically that...
Into the
interrogation room.
The interrogation with Simpson.
John, yeah. And he's basically like, this is not the guy. He would have broken by now. Cut him loose.
Yeah, because John's getting very aggressive at this point.
He's taking out his gun. He has that on his
and
desk.
Satch is like, nah, we're not doing this.
Right. So he's told to basically kick him loose. Frank goes to the bathroom and gets assaulted by Jack, who wants to know why he's following him. Jack ends up knocking him out.
Frank says the name of the first victim, Mary Finelli. Because
Right.
remember, he was told that. So now Jack knows that Frank knows he's the killer.
Right. So he takes his wallet, takes some stuff out of it.
He steals his license.
Yeah. And tosses it. Frank wakes up. I could have sworn he just ran upstairs.
Oh, before that, also, Jack's about to kill Frank.
Right.
He wraps something around his neck. He's going to kill him. But 2 men enter.
Gotcha.
Including...
One man leaves. Just kidding.
Including Stoned Man number 1.
Okay.
Played by Derek Osland. He was in Urban Legends Final Cut and 6 episodes of The Company. And Jack, basically just pretends that, Frank's drunk and he just needs to go hang out in the toilet. This is the only thing that saved Frank's life. He was going to get killed. And it's kind of like, why didn't he ever go back to kill him?
Right.
This is one of those plot holes where he wouldn't have just let this man live for another 20 years.
Right.
If he knows you're the killer, you're going to kill him.
Right. So at this point, He
I mean, he has a plan.
Right.
He has a plan, and he's going to try getting him arrested for the murders. But still, like, if you're about to kill him in this moment, why wouldn't you have just gone back and killed him after the dude left the bathroom?
Right. There should be no father to talk to at this point.
Yeah, like, as soon as the dude left the bathroom, he should have went right back in there and finished strangling him.
Right. And now he has to talk to Gordo to help prevent the murders. Anyway. So, yeah, Frank wakes up. He ends up running up the stairs, pretending to be the police. But Sissy Clark is very dead. And by the way, he's witnessed...
yes, by Nosy Neighbor. Nosy Neighbor's played by Nancy E.L. Ward. She was in Cinderella Man and $1 Million Murder. So yeah, somebody's watching Frank. They know he's here. He pretends to be... He's like, police! And he knocks or breaks into the door with a card.
Right.
Finds her body. He's too late. Sissy Clark is dead. And then he goes home? Maybe should have called Satch?
I mean, maybe. I don't know why he doesn't at that point, but yeah. So Frank talks to John, blaming himself for the death, thinking it's because they cheated. When they originally saved Frank, now they've changed the timeline in bad ways, and it's all basically karma.
Yeah. Now, Sissy Clark was not supposed to die in
Right.
the original history.
Right.
She's dead now.
Yes.
Because of them.
Yes.
So he's feeling very guilty about this.
Right. And basically, John is like, hey, look, we can't go back and re-burn you in the fire, so we got to deal with this now. Frank says he took it, that Jack ended up taking his driver's license, and they realized the killer touched his wallet.
Yeah, but he's worried because, like, Jack knows where he lives, so he
Right.
thinks he's going to come kill his whole family.
Right. Yeah, and come to think of it, why doesn't he anyway?
Right.
But because he left the wallet behind, together, they end up figuring out how to wrap the wallet and how to hide the wallet so that it won't be discovered in 30 years. And this works.
Yeah, he hides it under a floorboard in the window seat,
Yep.
and just as quickly as Frank hides it, John retrieves it.
Yes.
And that was some good police work there.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of. And this is where Forensic Tech Hector comes in.
Okay.
Who you already talked about.
Yes.
He's played
Desmond
by
Campbell.
Desmond Campbell. He's the one running the prints
Gotcha.
for John.
Yeah.
These names.
Yes.
Once we introduce Jack, I get lost.
Yeah. And basically, he realizes who the killer is.
Yeah, well, we know the prints belong to a cop, Jack Shepard, and he remembers the name Jack Shepard from when he interviewed Jack's parents.
He goes back to talk to Fred, whose wife is now dead.
Right, and she died a long time ago.
Right.
Hint, hint.
Al comes by to say, guess what? You just changed the timeline. You killed this guy's wife. And by the way, in the new timeline, does this guy's wife get saved?
Well, that leads to my questions at the end of this.
Right.
We can talk about that later.
Okay.
But yes, Shepard, Mr. Shepard, he remembers him. So they had a similar interaction.
Yes.
When the body was found,
Well,
but
Mrs.
wife
Spinelli-
wasn't there this
Right.
time.
Mrs. Spinelli still would have been dug up because she died no matter what, and was discovered, and then John would have gone and talked to the neighbors regardless.
Right. The only difference from
Yeah.
his memory, and he doesn't seem to remember this timeline, even though he should,
Yes.
is that the wife's not there for it
Right.
anymore. Because he looks surprised when he says his wife's dead.
Right. John and Frank talk about what to do next, but in comes Satch, and they're all very confused about what's going on here.
I'm confused about where you are.
Oh.
Because before all that,
Yeah,
John goes to a bar where older Jack Shepard is.
Right, yeah, my bad.
So he must have got from the dad, like, where Jack hangs out?
Right. And he brings up all he knows, and the Mary Finelli, and this and that.
Yeah,
And
basically he's like, I got you, dude.
Right. And by the way, you're going down 30 years ago. You just don't know it yet. And of course, this is very confusing. But why would he do this?
Right? And he says to him, you changed your M.O. for your mother's murder so it wouldn't look like a Nightingale. Basically saying, I know you killed her too. It just never was clocked as a Nightingale murder because you used a different M.O. on her.
Gotcha.
So does that mean that the whole reason Jack's a serial killer is because he has mommy issues and wanted to kill his mom? So he just started killing all these other nurses instead?
I thought that was like... Well, I mean, not in the original timeline.
In the original timeline, he died before he could kill his mom.
Fair. Okay.
But was that like the goal? To just work himself up to killing his mom?
Was his mom also a nurse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw the pictures of her on the mantle. She was a nurse.
Okay. Yeah. So John and Frank talk about what to do next. But in comes Satch. He's basically there to arrest Frank.
Yeah, he's there with his partner, Chuck.
and he hears this person, John, on the radio, who's referred to as, and basically Frank talks about him as Little Chief. He calls him his Frank dad,
right?
While Satch is there. Frank is really confused, but he insists that they need to go outside and talk. And we see Frank's partner here, not Frank's partner, Satch's partner, played by Richard Sally. 56 credits for him, including an episode of Supernatural, an episode of The X-Files, Born Again in the first season, which means I covered him and talked about him before. And My Secret Identity with Jerry O'Connell.
He also was in 2 episodes of Friday the 13th, the series.
Jerry O'Connell, of course, being the star of Sliders, which we will probably eventually cover. So outside, Satch wants to know where Frank was last night. And Frank is basically being accused of murdering Sissy.
Yeah, because they found his ID under Sissy's body.
That is not a good thing. Frank basically wants to go back inside to tell his wife where he's going. Basically, John is basically telling Frank to go to the station to talk about this issue.
Satch.
Yeah. So Frank goes inside. He starts telling John what's happening. Chaos ensues.
Yeah, because Satch follows him in and is like, no, I don't know who you're talking to, but I can't let you do that.
In the ensuing chaos, the ham radio goes flying, burning the radio and breaking it in the present day as well.
Yeah, short circuits on John's side.
Now, I, at this point, did not remember how the rest of the movie went. I was completely blanking.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm looking at this broken radio and I'm like, okay, Frank needs to fix that, or it's going to create a paradox.
This is where I already, like, I put in my notes here, this is where I started having a hard time following the logic.
Right.
Because this should have already been a paradox.
Right.
Because if the radio was broken, and he hasn't fixed it yet.
Right.
So things don't change until they change.
Right.
So in this moment, the radio's been broken for 30 years.
Right.
John would not have pulled it out and put it on his desk.
Right.
He would not have been able to talk to his dad.
Right.
Therefore, he never would have been able to save his dad's life in the first place.
Gotcha.
Paradox.
Okay.
As soon as the radio's broken, it should all fall apart.
Right. Gotcha. All right. And actually, yeah, basically the entire universe should explode.
Right.
Okay. So,
we go to the station.
Yep. Frank tries to tell Satch about Jack. He's not biting. He's pointing out that he's in big-time shit, basically. And Frank tries to tell him the outcome of the Mets game.
Right. So is this game 3?
Yes.
So this is the game they're supposed to be at.
Right. So Satch is not impressed by any of this. He tells him that he's going to be made for the Sissy murders, and then he's going to get made for the Nightingale murders as well. And he's like, do you know what this means? And yeah, basically that would radically change history.
Yeah, and Frank just keeps talking about the baseball game and telling him all the details of what's about to happen.
Right.
And go watch the game.
Right. So someone comes in to tell him that his wife is here, and Satch goes and talks to John's wife.
Yeah, and this is the desk sergeant that comes in. He's played by Frank McAnulty.
Which is kind of funny, the name McNulty, because that was the character's last name in The Wire, which was based on a real person, by the way.
Okay. He was in 2 episodes of Schitt's Creek and 1 episode of Covert Affairs.
So, she's being remarkably calm here. There was that big ugly scene back at the house, and he's being arrested, and she's just kind of silently looking at him.
She has no idea what's going on, though. She doesn't know why her husband's been brought down. And this is their friend, Satch. They're like best friends. So she's just here to talk to Satch, like, well, what the frick's going on? You want to tell me?
Right.
She doesn't know it's something serious.
I mean, it kind of seems serious based on the scene back at the house. I mean, you would figure that she'd be a little bit more freaked out. But
meanwhile, John's looking at the scrapbook again, and now the article says, Nightingale strikes again, fireman suspect.
Whoa.
First of all, who's putting this shit in a scrapbook at this point?
Right. Why would John do
Because, if your dad was arrested as a killer, your mom's dead, who the frick put this scrapbook together?
Right.
Anyways, shouldn't John have new memories?
Yes.
Right now?
Yes.
Of, like, how this turns out?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you know if your dad gets arrested or executed as the Nightingale murderer?
Right.
He doesn't seem to know anything at this point.
Well, not to mention the fact that you're father was arrested and pinned
Right.
with these serial killer murderers would drastically change your life.
Exactly.
So you would no longer be in this house, in this situation.
Right.
Nothing that's happening now would be the case.
Right.
Like,
he would have gone into foster care because his mom's dead. Remember that?
Right, yeah.
Right. So, but he should know everything at this point. Assuming they have no further contact, this is the timeline now.
Yeah.
He should remember exactly what plays out from here on out.
Yep. Okay.
And he doesn't seem to know anything.
Right. So Satch ends up bringing his
Julia
to go get coffee. We see Jack go into the station. He talks to his partner.
He talks to the desk sergeant.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He wants to go see their caller.
Right.
Remember, he's a cop.
Right.
Just at a different precinct.
So at coffee, Satch is trying to get the info about Frank's whereabouts last night. The Mets game is being played in the background. Jack comes into the interrogation room and forces Frank to sit at gunpoint. You know, it'd be really stupid. I don't even know why Jack is doing this. Let him go down for the murders.
Right. If you planted his ID to get him arrested, what's his plan here?
I don't know why he's here at all.
I mean, okay. Let's play let's play Jack for a minute.
Okay.
He knows that Frank knows he's the killer.
Yes.
So if he lets Frank just get questioned, he's going to be like, that cop, Jack Shepard's the killer.
Right.
So I guess he doesn't want that line of questioning to come out.
Right.
But why'd you set him up in the first place then? Why didn't you just go kill him?
Right.
Why did you plant his ID?
Right.
Unless he did drop the ID on accident?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that was an accident.
He's not very smart.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, in this timeline, he killed 10 women, killed his mother, and got away with it.
Right.
And then, I'm sticking to it. The whole point was he wanted to kill his mother because he stopped after that.
Okay.
He didn't continue murdering for 30 years. He only still murdered over a couple of years and killed his mom.
Gotcha.
So, something made him stop, even in this timeline.
And
meanwhile, all the cops are watching the baseball game.
Right.
Nobody's paying attention to anything. They're focused on, they're all in one room watching the game.
Except for Satch's partner.
Right, Chuck.
Who comes into the room. And basically, like, Frank is like, he's trying to kill me. And the partner's like, I don't care about this. Let's just go outside.
Yeah, and he's like, what are you doing with my collar?
Right.
Jack lies and said that he's here because John matched the description of a robbery. I guess he works in that department.
So Satch ends up asking Julia about who John is talking to on the radio.
Who Frank's talking to.
Frank, that's what I meant. Right.
So many names.
His wife answers John. She tells him that he's going to be he's probably going to be taken off the case. And then Frank is going to tell the story that he just told him. And in that case, and if he does, nobody is going to be able to help him.
Right.
And we see at this point that a flurry of Frank actions, he's setting something up.
He's pulling electrical cords out of the wall of the interrogation room.
Right.
Doing something with electricity.
And by the way, these Satch scenes at this point are really funny. They're played straight, but they're really, really funny.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, everything that's being talked about here is ridiculous.
Right. And he tells Julia that Frank thinks that John is Johnny.
Right.
And Julia's like, you must have misunderstood him.
Yeah, and Satch is starting to look like stressed. He's like rubbing his forehead. And Satch makes the situation very clear that Frank is in deep, deep shit here. Frank ends up completing his setup, and then he sits down, waiting. His wife says, his wife actually asks, Frank didn't do this, right? And Satch doesn't look convinced at all.
He tells her, Sissy Clark was murdered.
Yeah.
Frank is connected. He's either a witness, an accomplice, or the perp.
Right.
But one way or another, he's involved.
Right. So, basically, he starts trying to talk some more, but then Frank happens to notice the TV. And what's happening? Satch. Wow. Meanwhile, Jack goes back into Frank's room.
Yes, Jack. Okay. Got that one right.
And he sets up his trap where he throws a wire into a coffee spill that he just spilled, electrocutes Jack, not killing him.
Right, just kind of makes him, like,
Right.
fall to the floor for a minute.
So Satch...
And also doing this, the power goes out.
Right.
Including the TV, so now all the cops are alerted that something's wrong.
Right. Satch continues to watch the game. And
Yeah, he's paying attention because everything that Frank told him is coming true now.
Right. And Frank...
And Julia's just sitting there very confused, like, I thought we're talking about my husband being a murderer, and now you're watching baseball?
Yeah. So Frank sets off the fire alarm and then escapes the building.
Not before he goes into Jack's wallet, takes Jack's ID to
Right.
get his address.
Right. And meanwhile, Satch is celebrating the Mets win. He has a smile on his face. It's a little confusing, like, what he's actually thinking at this moment.
Well, I mean, he believes him now, I guess.
So Frank goes to Jack's apartment. He's hiding when Jack comes home.
Yeah, they play this little cat and mouse game where they're, like, walking around in circles, avoiding each other.
Right. Frank finds a bunch of evidence on Jack.
Yeah, he finds all the souvenirs from the
Right.
murders. And by the way, it looked like there was a lot more than 4 things in that box.
Yeah, there was a lot of
There's only been
stuff
4
there.
murders at this point.
Right.
There's like a box full. So does that mean there were tons of other murders that they never connected?
Maybe he's just collecting, multiple things from different people. So he narrowly avoids getting shot by Jack as he gets out of the apartment.
Yeah, he goes out the fire escape.
Meanwhile, at the same time, Satch and his partner break into the same apartment, find the same evidence, which means they know it's Jack now, too.
Right. So because
Right.
he believes him.
Right.
Right. And he had mentioned Jack, so they go to Jack's house. Now, but at the same time, they're like chasing down the fire escape. Shots are being fired all over the place outside. Do Satch and Chuck approaching this apartment building not hear the shots outside?
Yeah, they completely seem to miss that.
Should they not go investigate that instead of actually coming into the apartment?
Right. So Frank is hiding under the dock. He ends up reaching up through the boards like some kind of like horror monster.
Yes, he's exactly.
Right.
He's Jason Voorhees.
Right. He ends up dragging Jack into the water. They end up fighting in the water. He manages to get the gun out of Jack's hand, and then Jack goes missing. Basically, he's out of danger, but Jack is missing.
Right. So he thinks that Jack drowned.
Right. Arriving at the dock is Satch and his partner.
Yeah, just a little behind.
Right. Frank goes home to his...
Meanwhile, we can hear the city going crazy.
Yeah.
Because the Mets just won.
Yay! Frank goes home to his wife and kid, but no one can find Jack. The lights...
Yeah, the police are looking for Jack's body in the water.
Yep.
The roars are starting to fade.
Yep. Aurora Borealis. I'm actually impressed I was actually able to say that multiple times throughout this podcast, by the way. Frank ends up fixing the radio, and of course it ends up getting fixed in the prime timeline
Right.
As well. We actually see it like
Morphing.
fix itself.
Yeah, it's pretty cool effects.
His wife gives him coffee and cigarettes, but he ends up crumbling up the cigarettes and throwing them away.
Yes.
John goes back to the house, talks to his dad, celebrating that they stopped the murderer. But there's just one problem. He doesn't remember his wife, his mother, not being dead.
Yeah, she's still gone.
Which confuses me, because Jack shows up at John's house, knocks him out clean, at the same time that he's also breaking into the house of Frank's. And this is a big problem for me. Why, if he breaks into Frank's house in the original timeline, is he also at the same time, 30 years later, going, why is he returning to this house if he's already done this?
Well, he hasn't, though. Because remember, it doesn't happen until it happens.
But okay, he's currently at Frank's house.
So, I mean, it's a cool scene, but yes, it all falls apart.
Right, yeah.
So both versions of Jack, 1969 Jack and 1999 Jack, at the same time, break into the house, knock out father and son.
Right.
And wants to end this.
Right.
Now, it does make sense that he would want to go stop John because John knows he's the killer. But this is my big question, and I have it somewhere in my notes after this. What the frick happened during those 30 years?
Right.
Regardless, forgetting what's about to happen in the 1969 living room. Forgetting that for a minute. Because it doesn't happen till it happens.
Okay.
but he already, like, did the whole, like, he's lost in the water thing.
Yes.
No matter what he does after that moment, what does he do for the next 30 years?
I mean, at this point, he's been outed as a killer.
Right.
So he's not going to keep up on his job as a cop.
Right.
So that means that Frank is not going to find him in a bar.
Right.
To have this conversation.
What is happening?
Right. Yeah, so so that would eliminate Jack's motivation for showing up here at this time.
Right.
Right.
It's like his timeline wasn't updating.
Right. I don't know. So, yeah, so Frank is chained up.
It is a cool, like, looking scene, though, seeing this same thing play out in 2 different times.
It just
and
doesn't
also, the radio's open.
Yeah.
So they're all hearing both sides.
Right.
Including Jack, who's like, what the frick am I listening to?
Right. It's really cool, but it makes not a lick of sense.
It doesn't on
No.
so many different levels.
Right. So Frank is, like, tied up.
They're struggling in both timelines.
Yeah.
It's Frank gets handcuffed to a beam.
So Jack is going to go and kill his wife.
Yeah, he gets in bed with Julia and is about to, like, cause problems for her. She screams for Frank, but he's handcuffed. Johnny comes into the room, little Johnny.
Yes. So my question is, at this point, everybody is vulnerable. Why not just kill them all right now?
Well, he's trying to.
Yeah, but he's not trying very hard.
Well, we can't actually let them get killed.
I mean, I guess, because that would suck for the movie. But...
Frank reaches for a paper clip to get himself out of the handcuffs. This was really cool. Julia scratches Jack's face in 1969.
And then it shows up.
And the scars appear on his face in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cool effect. I liked that one.
All right, so basically Jack has little Johnny. He goes downstairs. Frank, who's free at this point, has a shotgun on him. And basically, Jack says over the radio, "Time to die," which distracts Jack in the past. And he ends up getting his hand blown off, which, by the way, would dramatically affect his life. Okay, so this is the part. This is the part that kind of reminds me of Looper and Looper's kind of stupid logic in that one scene. So basically, you don't know anything about Looper, right?
I don't remember.
All right. So basically, there's basically these assassins, and they kill people, and then in the 30 years in the future, you retire. And then you're sent back into the past to be killed by your current self, and then you're retired. You're done.
Okay.
So one of the people who do this, their future self got away. So they capture the present day self, and they start mutilating him. They cut off his nose, they cut off his legs, and we see the future self, basically slowly lose a nose or lose a leg.
Okay.
If you lose a nose, if you lose your legs, if you become this mutilated corpse, you don't exist anymore. Like, you can't carry out these actions at this point. So you should just be gone. Like, your history has changed. You're done.
Right.
So, if you blow off Jack's hand, that dramatically changes his life to the point where he should not be in the present day timeline anymore.
Okay, so in 1969, his hand gets blown off.
Yeah.
And in 1999, we see it shrivel and disappear, including Jack reacting to it, like, what's happening to my hand?
That also doesn't make any sense.
Let's keep going, and then we can...
All right.
Because the next moment really breaks it for me.
All right, so Frank...
We see all the furniture change in this moment.
Yeah.
In 1999, all the furniture changes.
Right.
Meaning something big happened.
Right. So Jack gets away in the past timeline, runs away. And then... Basically, John is still in danger because he's still wrestling with Jack.
Right. In 1999.
He's about to get the best of John when all of a sudden we see a shotgun. We don't see the person once again.
Right.
The shotgun kills Jack, and then it's revealed to be Old Man Frank.
Right. And he says to John, "I'm still here, Chief."
Yep.
And they hug.
Yes.
Now, there's more movie. But let's stop for a moment and talk about where we're at.
Okay.
So, first of all, Dad's alive.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes.
He's alive.
Right.
It's a shock to John that his dad's alive.
Right. He should have all these memories.
Shouldn't he have remembered his dad and his dad been around the second that Frank decided to quit smoking?
Yes.
Okay, so there's that.
Yes.
Okay, that didn't happen after the struggle. This
No.
happened earlier.
Right. So he should have these memories.
Next, what happened in 1969 with Jack?
Right. Where did he go at that point?
His hand's blown off,
Yes.
but somehow 30 years later, he's in this living room to get killed. Wouldn't it have made more sense if we killed him in 1969?
It would have, I guess. Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
I don't
What has this man done for 30 years that he's here now with one hand struggling with
And then
John?
and then after that, 30 years.
And Jack knows,
Yeah.
or Frank knows to come on this day to save his son's life because he remembers this is supposed to happen today. Why did we not prevent it before this?
Right. Yeah, like, why would Jack at this point with his blown off hand come back to this house 30 years? What's his motivation at this point to show up at this house to try to kill
But
John?
where has he been for 30 years?
Right, yeah.
Did all those other murders
Right.
happen? Because
Right.
he was still alive all that time.
Yeah.
Did he kill his mother?
Right.
Not, we know he didn't kill,
Julia?
yes, we know he didn't kill Julia because she's okay, but what about the other victims? What about Jack's mom?
Right.
Where's he been?
Right.
And why did they not find him or catch him or convict him in 1969 when the whole world knows he's the killer?
Right.
If he was arrested,
I'm
he
assuming.
would still be in jail if you murdered all these women. You're not getting out
Right.
in 30 years. You're not.
So he managed to stay on the run for 30 years.
And then come back?
with one hand and decides to show up today to try and kill John.
Right.
Yeah, so the logic here completely falls to pieces at this point.
Yeah, I cannot come up with any explanation.
Right.
Because the idea is they lived happily ever after, this family.
Yes.
How do you live happily ever after if you know they never caught the guy?
Right.
Wouldn't we have moved away and been done with this?
Right. I would have
When
think
this
so.
killer's trying to kill our family and knows where we live and he was never caught.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, there's things in this movie, like, that would dramatically change your life to the point where, like, you wouldn't still be in the same location, you wouldn't still be having the same job, like, things would just change
Right.
a lot.
Right.
But it doesn't.
Or
Yeah.
they'd have caught the guy
Right.
and he wouldn't be here to have this dramatic scene.
Right. Yeah. The logic here in these last couple of scenes, it's really cool. It's, cutting back and forth and everything that happens. It just does not make any damn
It
sense.
doesn't make any sense
Right.
at all.
Yes.
All right, so let's cover the ending scene. We jump to the new future,
Right.
where you apparently weren't watching.
I mean, I noticed these things, like, now that I think about it, but it didn't really register that was a change.
So everybody's playing baseball.
Yep.
We've got John, Satch, Julia, Frank, Gordo. They're all playing.
Yep.
Samantha's in the stands.
Okay.
She's pregnant.
I did not notice that at all.
She's very pregnant in the stands. A baseball hits Gordo's Benz. He has a license plate that says Yahoo.
Right.
So he's rich now.
Yep.
But also, shouldn't that have changed halfway through the movie as soon as we had the Santa Claus scene?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that have come into play at some point that your best friend is rich?
Yeah, he's next door.
This would have changed your life, too,
Yes.
for the last half of this movie.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming Gordo would have taken care of John, his best friend.
And, I mean, he probably doesn't even live in that house anymore.
Right. Actually, he converted it to a mansion. So next door there's a mansion.
But, like, this should have affected things
Yes.
before now.
Right.
I like that we nodded back to it, and,
Yeah.
like, that's a cool little tiny, like, thing,
It's
but...
a nice little joke.
But it also, like, this should have changed things.
Right.
Through this whole climax of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then there's a little boy there.
Yep.
And
That's the guy credited as Frank Jr.
he's credited as Frank Jr.
Yep.
I'm assuming, though, that this is John and Sam's child. Because he's like 8 years old.
Yep.
He cannot be Julia and Frank's child.
Right.
They're too old.
Yes.
So I'm assuming John and Sam got their act together much quicker in this timeline, and this pregnancy is their second child.
Okay.
And this boy is their first child.
Is Michael Cera's character there?
Probably I didn't note him, but
Right, yeah.
I'm sure he must be.
Yeah.
Unless being rich, deleted him. Maybe he didn't.
Well, sorry.
The same wife is there. I did see her, so he must be there somewhere.
Right. No, Gordo Jr. has just been erased from the timeline now.
Or he's at private school.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
send him away. Okay, but this character is credited as Frank Jr.
Yes.
That's not how juniors work. If you name your kid after your father, it's not a junior.
Right.
When you skip a generation like that, it's not a junior.
So are you sure it's not John's kid?
Julia is like 70, 60 at least. She
Okay.
did not have an 8-year-old. No.
No, I mean, John and Sam's kid.
Right.
So he named him after his father, Junior.
But if that wouldn't be a junior.
Oh, yeah.
You're only a junior if you're named after your father.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
they named him after Grandpa, but that's
Right.
not Junior.
Well, he's not called Frank Jr. in the movie, is it?
He's not called anything in the movie. There's just this kid there.
So it's an error in the credits, not actually the movie.
And, I mean, it's not the first error in the credits.
Right, no. There's been a couple.
I just found this kind of hilarious that I was like, who is Frank Jr.? When did that happen? And I'm like, oh,
Well,
it's this little boy.
I was also confused by that credit. And I was like, I don't understand who this person is, but yeah.
So yeah, we had this kid and he's part of the family. So he's
Right.
so yeah, we had a happy life is I guess the conclusion.
Yeah.
And then we see clips of the new history as it played up. John growing up with both of his parents for the first time.
Yep.
He didn't lose either of them.
And
And Frank Jr., by the way, is played by Tucker Robin. His only other acting credit was the film Mighty Aphrodite.
I've heard of that. I think that's a Woody Allen film.
I don't know. And then he had 2 assistant credits.
Interesting.
More recently.
All right. So they're playing the game. Frank gets on base. And Frank is basically saying, "Bring me home, little chief." John ends up hitting a home run. And he slowly makes his way around the bases as we see a bunch of new memories from the updated history playing. And that's where the movie
Okay,
ends.
so I see what happened. I'm paying attention to what's the new history, who are the people,
Yeah.
and you're paying attention to the acts of the baseball game.
Pretty much.
When I glossed over, oh, they're playing baseball.
Right.
And then I paid attention to everything else
Right.
in the background.
Well, we both got there.
You didn't even know he ended up with Sam, okay?
Right. Yeah. No. It's a fun movie. The
Let me
ending
do a couple more people that we didn't figure out where to place them
Okay.
before we do our final things
summation
here. I don't know where we met these people, but we have young intern played by Brantley Bush. He was in movies such as Bones and Blow.
Okay.
We have Roofman Billy, played by Timothy Brown. He was in 6 episodes of MASH, 3 episodes of Adam 12. We have Uniform Cop Number 1, played by Danny Johnson, 8 episodes of The Equalizer, and 6 episodes of Daredevil. And we have Uniform Cop Number 2, played by Colm Magner. He was in Land of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead, but it's 2 different characters.
And I might as well bring this up since I have them at the end of my credits. The ones that I did not get were John D. Bandito, the Con Ed supervisor. You brought up Goodfellas, I'm pretty sure. I had Find Me Guilty and Sleepers. I don't know if you brought up either one of those
I
credits.
did not.
Terry Serpico was in The Men Who Stare at Goats and Michael Clayton. And did you mention Brian's, however you pronounce that guy's name?
Smidge is what I came up with.
Did you mention his 201 stunt credits?
I did.
Okay, you
Yes,
did mention that.
I did.
And then he was also in Man in the Moon, which your husband was very fond of that movie.
Was he?
Yes.
That's news to me.
We and Tim went to go see that movie, and he was like, going on and on about how great that movie was.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't care for that movie.
And Batman Forever and Bringing Out the Dead.
All right.
All right, so
that's all the cast.
Yes.
We got them all.
Yep.
50, I think 51.
Yep.
Or something like that. A lot of people in this movie.
Yeah, it was a lot. I thought it was
It's a good movie.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you cannot look at it too closely.
Right.
Like any time travel story.
Exactly. I mean, you look at anything, Quantum Leap, we go
Right.
chapter and verse about how this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But we love the series nonetheless. The ending is very pat, but I'm perfectly okay with it.
I feel like they rushed the ending.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They could have made some of this stuff make a little more sense.
Right.
Without sacrificing it being cool.
Yeah.
They just needed to spend a little more time with it.
Right.
It's like we get this climax and then we're like, oh, here's the happy ending. And we don't, like, resolve anything.
I also kind of feel like it loses steam in the back half of the movie. Like, it kind of loses the whole father-son, portions of the portions of the movie. The affecting scenes of reconnecting with your father, who you lost, and getting a chance to talk to that person. It's very relatable because it's something that who wouldn't want to talk to, like, someone they lost back in the past. Well, we kind of lose that element in the back half of the film when we become like...
Yeah, it changes into a whole different movie, right?
Yeah.
We're no longer worrying about saving dad. Now, like, oops, mom's dead. Now we gotta play vigilante and track down a serial killer.
Right, yeah.
Which is silly, because guess what? You're both best friends with that cop.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's still a good movie all the way throughout. It's a good movie.
But it's just, it has some problems.
It just kind of loses steam towards the back half of the movie for me. But, do we have anything else to say before concluding?
I hope you have a better Father's Day than these characters would have.
I imagine that mine will not be anywhere near as exciting as this, for sure. All right, shout outs to all the fathers, including my own. Happy Father's Day. I'll probably give them a call on this day. I probably should.
Probably should.
Yeah. All
right, time travel self.
Yes,
Future Dave.
Yes.
You haven't called your dad yet. Do it.
Yes. I had reconnected with him earlier towards the back half of the end of the year. We hadn't talked in quite some time, and we were supposed to meet up. That didn't quite work out, and then 6 months went by, and
it happened.
Yeah, it's just like I don't even know where the time went.
Time has been going so rapidly over the last year.
Yeah,
like blink and a year has gone by, and
I know.
Cannot comprehend it right now how fast time is moving.
Right. I guess it just goes with being older.
But it's just like been ridiculous lately.
Yes, yeah.
Like I'm getting memories on Facebook like this was a year ago. Wasn't that last week?
Right, exactly. All right, we'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this podcast? What'd you think of this movie? If you make a comment, we'll shout you out somewhere.
Probably Quantum Leap.
Yeah, probably.
Would be the best place.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
All right, Stacie can be reached at.
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, the number of ways to do so, you can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join the Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.